let's do one more reading here today. And this following reading is going to come from another author named Radhe. She is this wonderful author who has brought together the portrayal of the divine forces of the deity in the classical Vedas as it is portrayed throughout the Vedas. In this case, of course, we're talking about Purva Ashadha and its deity Appam, the water goddess. So in this book, if you watch to the end of this video, there's going to be a little extra, and there's an extra video that I have discussing Appam in the classical Vedas. But in this moment, our main focus is to look at how Radhe, the author, describes the native of Purva Ashadha. It's 275. So that is our main thing here, is that we're looking at the native who has significant placements in Purva Ashadha, particularly the rising sign, the moon, or any large stellium of planets there, any large important planetary placement, the Atmakarika, what have you. And this comes from the divine forces of the lunar Nakshatras as portrayed in the Vedas. Now keep in mind that the writer of this book happens to be a sidereal practitioner. So they do consider that the zodiac is married to the stars. There's still great work in here that conveys the nature of Appam. So we have to take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes I'm usually good at catching it and thinking, oh, I can see that that's a sidereal perspective, and I'll try to take it out as I read it, kind of thing. But it's just good for us to keep this in mind. In today's time, we want to read about what ancient tradition has said about the nature of a native who is in these nakshatra qualities. And that's what we're doing here. We just have to be diligent in keeping in mind of the bias of an author like this and the reading that we're getting from. Ultimately, she's usually still on point, and it's usually still a very interesting read. So again, this is the nature of the native with any planets in Purva Ashadha, particularly the moon or the rising sign. So here's what we read. In keeping with the name of this nakshatra, which is Ashadha, meaning invincible or victory, Jyotisha Shastra classifies Purva Ashadha as an ugra or fierce nakshatra. It is said to be ideal for success in ruining enemies, destruction, deceit, imprisoning, poison, arson, striking with weapons, and murderers and the like. That comes from Brihat Samhita, Part 2. Very interesting. And that's the Ugra Nakshatras. So here, the Appas goddesses are seen as the daunting force of a powerful river rushing towards the ocean. Success under Purva Ashadha requires similar determination and momentum, varchas, as we know. The native follows their goals as relentlessly as the river flows towards the sea, achieving success as surely as the rivers reunite with the vast ocean. So the yearning of the Appas, the goddesses, the water, to merge with something larger and more powerful than themselves, is also bestowed upon the Purva Ashadha native. The individual drops of a river become exponentially more formidable when merging with the countless others to form the mighty ocean. For this native, too, great achievements come from synergistic alignment with others. Occupying the center of the Sagittarius constellation. Okay, yeah, I should have known that that would be... Okay, right, so this whole thing is saying that there's a connection to Sagittarius and Purva Ashadha. Let's skip that and move on to the next thing. Now we read that there is a strength of strategy. So as a master of strategist, the Purva Ashadha native may elect the profession of strategy consulting, be it for Fortune 500 companies, the government, or military. So recall that victory is schemed under Purva Ashadha, but accomplished in full under Uttara Ashadha. So the native may be better at strategizing than execution, with an emphasis of this nakshatra. It's thinking about all the plans that need to go in before a movement unfolds that becomes bigger than themselves, right? Figuring out all the pieces of the chess game that are going to be needed when we get out there. So, as with the Uttara Ashadha native, there's an invincible side to the Purva Ashadha person. Cunningly planning each artful victory, this person enters into battles with great confidence. So we read that Adolf Hitler had his moon and Jupiter, as well as Ketu, occupying Purva Ashadha. He displayed many of the coarse elements of Purva Ashadha. He was the mastermind behind the single-party dictatorship of the Third Reich, and implementation of his strategies triggered World War II. With the intent of purifying Germany, Hitler approved the genocide of over 5 million Jews. In such an extreme example of Purva Ashadha's desire for success and relentless purification, other chart factors come into play. And then there's some descriptions given of Hitler's chart, although it's sidereal. But I think this is a great picture of the worst of Purva Ashadha. And it's interesting that the moon and Jupiter and Ketu seem to all occupy Purva Ashadha. So, you can see the gross nature of how that came out there, especially with the moon conjunct Ketu. As well, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that it's probably the case that the Rahu might have been in Ardra for Hitler to have that anger. But I digress. We don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. Now, more typically, the Purva Ashadha native directs his attention to improving and purifying his own life. His desire to separate the wheat from the chaff results in perpetual personal refinement. So much attention is focused on cleansing the mind until, like the Sarasvati River, its channels run clean and pure. With the Appas as its ruling devatas, Purva Ashadha gives an affinity for water. If the fourth Bhava Pavesha involves Purva Ashadha, the native might live by a lake or near the ocean. So that's if the fourth lord, the Bhava Bhavesha, that's like, if you're a Cancer rising, Libra is the fourth sign in the whole sign house system. So Venus is the fourth Bhava Bhavesha, the fourth lord. So if the fourth lord involves Purva Ashadha, the native might live by a lake or near the ocean. If instead such a planet is the competitive third lord or the sixth lord, then perhaps there's a love for competitive water sports. Expect a profession connected with water if the 10th lord activates Purva Ashadha. For example, the person may be a midwife who assists mothers in water births, or something of the sort. Now, some other possible careers are offered by the Brihat Samhita. This jyotish sastra suggests that the potential is there for a profession as a navigator, a fisherman, one who works with aquatic animals, and constructors of bridges. Add to this list an oceanographer, marine biologist, or perhaps an irrigation expert, someone who's dealing with water, irrigation, and agricultural contexts and purposes.